Other interesting political news, you have the totalitarian European Union wanting to ban carbon fiber in cars because it might be quote unquote hazardous. Because, lithium ion batteries and all the acids in there, that's okay though. Right. Now, this comes to us thanks to Ronan, who's a writer at The Drive. And yet another reason why you should be involved in politics, because politics these days, unfortunately, affects pretty much everything we do, thanks to large, I would also argue, corrupt or evil totalitarian governments and regimes, especially in weak, conquered areas like Europe, which is so pathetically weak and conquered. They allow their leaders to ban the best things they make, aka like Porsche Caymans, which is going to become electric, and pretty much all of Germany, which leads the EU by GDP and innovation. Even they bent over and said, "Oh, don't worry, European Union. We'll do whatever you want. We'll stop making the most profitable, best things we make, so that China could win the automotive war." Yeah. They also have no freedom of speech, no freedom to defend yourself. Which is why I consider most of Europe a third world hellhole. Now, this says, again, thanks to Ronan at The Drive, say, quote, EU might ban carbon fiber in cars by classifying them as hazardous. Regulators are pegging the path on health and environmental hazards, but industry pushback seems inevitable. Yeah, probably. Absolutely. Now, one of the issues with, again, they want these cars to be as fuel efficient as possible. Well, one of the best ways you can increase the fuel efficiency of a vehicle is by removing weight. On average, with an internal combustion engine standard, every 100 pounds of weight you remove from a vehicle equates to about a 1% increase in fuel efficiency. That's why when the Ford F-150 famously went from being a mostly steel construction to aluminum, or if you're Europe, aluminium, well, they actually increased fuel economy about, I believe, 8% because they removed 800 pounds from the vehicle, which is insanely, has a big weight reduction. And here you can see one of the cool BMW, not monocoques. Yeah, it is. Single, yeah, that is right. Made of carbon fiber, which again is also not just extremely lightweight, so great for fuel efficiency, but incredibly safe for the passenger, well, and driver, because it's one of the strongest materials out there. Almost as strong as my urge for every vehicle to be a manual transmission. That's a strong urge, folks. Now, diving into the substance of the article, again credited to The Drive, and specifically Ronan, they say, quote, European regulators might drop the hammer on carbon fiber due to the health and environmental concerns. Lawmakers are floating the idea of adding it to the list of banned hazardous materials, which would send a ripple effect across the industries that's already struggling to make more efficient vehicles. Some of this, they want China to win. China to win. The European Parliament submitted an amended version of the End of Life Vehicles ELV directive. Another ADHD thing about the corrupt globalist Europeans. Well, they're leaders. Again, some folks living there. I understand that. But yeah, one of the reasons why Mercedes, a lot of people say they should have went bankrupt, but they never technically did a recall. They had these crappy wire harnesses a couple decades ago because Europe wanted everything to have a life cycle that eventually went back to Mother Gala. So they made the wire harnesses out of things that were biodegradable. The wire harness is like the spinal cord for your vehicle. It connects everything. When you have something that connects everything that's vulnerable and disposable, well, biodegradable, yeah, it goes to crap pretty quick, and they became, absolutely unreliable pieces of trash. Yeah, remember, they don't make cars for you and I, they make them for governments and government regulations. It's the most regulated things we ever buy. It's ridiculous. Back to the substance of the article, however, they say, quote, they submitted an amendment to the version of the end-of-life vehicle directive in April 2025, according to a Japanese new paper, Nikkei, and its document that carbon fiber in its crosshairs. The rationale is that the little strands of carbon fiber also often break apart when a piece of the material is recycled when the car is scrapped, for example, and hazardous for people and environment. I mean, like windmills? Oh, no, wait, they don't want to go after those. Interestingly, the law states that exemptions can be made, quote, when there are no adequate alternatives to the material considered hazardous. Adding carbon fiber to the list of banned materials seemingly implies that the adequate alternative exists. It doesn't. Though the EU hasn't identified it. Of course not. Some other materials that the EU deems hazardous but provides exemptions for include lead, mercury, cadmium, and, well, it's a new one, hexavalent chromium. It does sound pretty fancy, though. Pretty sure a rapper has their necklace made out of it somewhere. This is the first time that a major government qualified carbon fiber as dangerous, and the material isn't exactly new. Once reserved for high-end race cars, it has inched forward to mainstream over the past couple of years as automakers look for ways to design lighter and lighter vehicles. Electrification has accelerated this trend. EVs are much heavier than comparable gasoline-powered vehicles, and because the weight is the enemy of range, manufacturers use carbon fiber to keep it in check. The BMW iX features an assortment of carbon fiber panels called the Carbon Cage, for example, which perhaps the most boring of all the BMWs, but is an interesting marvel of engineering. I'll give them that. As of the time of this writing, the proposed ban, which has not yet been approved, would apply only to cars. There's no word whether it would sooner or later be extended to apply to the carbon fiber used outside the automotive industry. It's also used in planes, including the 787 Boeing Dreamliner, and wind turbines, which the planes, yeah, I would understand them being a little bit more concerned about the materials of planes, because Boeing planes has a high propensity of crashing, especially if they're depending on who's driving them. But nevertheless, they also say, quote, bicycles, sailboat mast, and fish rod manufacturers also rely on carbon fiber to keep weight low. Members of the European Parliament and European Commission and the European Council will debate whether to ban carbon fiber in the coming weeks. And Nikkei learned that the ban likely won't come into effect until 2029 if approved, which is how a lot of these things happen. Make the pains feel like less if you just put it off in the future, and then inevitably makes everyone's lives a lot worse. Now, they say they might end up as a classified hazardous material, exempt from ban, or the whole idea could be dropped, or maybe the even ban will go through, unquote. So, yeah, we'll see. But, yet more reasons to get out and vote appropriately. Again, it seems like we want to take away and destroy everything we hold dear, or maybe stuff like me, fun cars, cool guns, freedom. It's so asinine. Yes, the European Union. No one is surprised by this. Again, carbon fiber is one of the best materials, bar none, for vehicle manufacturing. And thankfully, thanks to innovation and, mass production, the cost per unit is getting lower and lower and lower. Again, they're right. It used to be only for F1 cars that cost, well, I'd say more than a house, more than the neighborhood, let's be honest, or 2 houses in Texas. But in all reality, getting into more and more consumer vehicles is a marvel of engineering. And as long as you have it appropriately recycled in a appropriate spot, it'll probably be okay. Probably. I'm only partially being sarcastic. I always debate with folks that everything is technically recyclable, even like depleted uranium from nuclear plants, because people think it's the most hazardous thing in the world. It is. It's also one of the densest substances on the planet. Great for tank busters. But I partially digress. I can't help but wonder, do they just want us to all drive Chinese EVs? They seem to be attacking the best things Germany and, Europe used to make. But we'll see if this goes through. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes through. You have places like California banning gas engines altogether. But let me know your thoughts and comments, because as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to tune in today. Again, trying to get to 5,000 subscribers by the end of the month, so you can click that button. I really appreciate it. Also, give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, or a comment. It's a great way to give me some additional feedback, letting me know how I can make the show better and better. Lastly, don't forget to take time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe, fight the good fight.